Okay, and we're recording. So could you please repeat your question, the issue you're having?
Sure. So I'm trying to create an app that relates the specific issues to specific clashes.
Okay.
So I believe that the issues are made from clashes, right?
Not necessarily. So are you talking about clashes from the model coordination module?
Yeah, that's right. That's correct.
Okay. Well, as far as I know, the issues are actually general issues. It's a way for you to specify generic different types of issues, like an equipment needing some maintenance or some device needing some fixing, for example. I don't think that it's strictly linked to model
Okay.
coordination clashes. In fact, I'm not sure if there's any actual link between these two by default. I don't think so.
Okay, so I had that wrong then.
Yeah, so I think what you'll probably want to do if you're interested in connecting issues and clashes is actually establishing this connection yourself. But again, I might be wrong here because this is not my area of expertise.
Okay.
So for these types of questions, I would definitely recommend that you use one of our official support channels, right? If you go to the dev portal and you go to the get help section, or you can simply send an email to aps.help@autodesk.com. That way your question will come to our ticketing system, where one of my colleagues who's more experienced with the model coordination module or with BIM 360 or ACC can help you.
Okay, great, Peter. That's very helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I was mistaken on that one. I thought they were directly correlated.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I don't think so. Again, like the issues have been around for quite a while now. And again, these were, as far as I understand, these are meant for reporting generic issues in a facility, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that is very helpful. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Sorry I couldn't help more, but again, for these very specific types of questions, again, I definitely recommend using the official support channel, because then again, one of
Sure.
our colleagues who's our expert for clashes or the ACC issues, for example, maybe they already have a solution for this linking. It's just that I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
All right.
No, that is actually helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. We have a few more folks joining us. Welcome. Hi, Jonathan and Alex.
Hi, Peter.
Hi. All right. So I got 4 p.m. here. I believe that is the official start time for our coffee break. So we may see a few more people flowing in over time, but I think we can get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. For those of you who maybe don't know me, I'm Peter Browse. I'm one of the developer advocates here at Autodesk. And today I'm stepping in for Augusto, running the next edition of our APS coffee break. So this is an event where we typically like to let you drive the discussion, where we want to hear from you. If there's any questions you have, or maybe comments or something you want to show, something interesting you found or built using Autodesk Platform Services, definitely let us know. We want to see what you've been up to, or again, if you need help with anything. And let me share my screen here. All right, I see more people coming in. That's good. How's everyone doing?
Doing good.
All right. Hi, Eric.
How's it going?
Good.
Good.
Good here. Lots of work. That's good. I believe that's a good sign.
Keep you busy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we have an accelerator happening in Copenhagen right now. I was just talking to my colleagues a moment ago, but it's 4 p.m. on their side as well, so they had to leave the office right around now, so they won't be able to join us today, unfortunately.
Is there a cost to like join, like if you're doing it remotely?
If there is a cost for joining?
Yeah.
No cost. Well, I mean, other than if it's virtual, then no cost at all. If you want to attend in person, which I prefer, then it's, getting to a specific place and maybe finding some hotel there. But the event itself, the accelerators are always free. We only ask people who are interested in joining us to go through a simple review process where we typically just ask for a quick description of something you are thinking about building within that 1 week time frame, and that's only for us to be able to tell you, okay, maybe this is already solved. Here's a GitHub repo where you have a code tab, or we can say, sorry, that what you're trying to build is currently not possible with our platform, right? So we want to make sure that you're not surprised when you come join us for a week and suddenly we realize, oh, but this actually, we won't be able to help you.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah. And we're running the events. We're trying to run them roughly once every month or once every 2 months. The next one is going to be at the end of April, and there's actually going to be 2 accelerators, it looks like, running at the same time. One in Nice in France, and one in Medellin in Colombia.
Okay, yeah, I heard about those.
Yeah, so we're starting to plan our travels there so that we can again join customers in person, which again I very much prefer. It's very different than collaborating on Slack. I mean, Slack is pretty powerful as well. I can't really replace face-to-face.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. It is a lot different.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and just to add to what Peter said, if you're located in a certain place in the world and you have enough people or developer community meetups, that kind of thing, that developers that might be interested, we're always happy to entertain ideas on location. So feel free to suggest where you might like to see one ideally. And as Peter said, the accelerator itself, they're always free. But we do, you of course are responsible for your own travel expenses. But even there, we can help you. We can, suggest hotels. We can suggest where to stay, that kind of thing, to help you get around if you travel a long distance and aren't familiar with the area.
Okay, cool.
great point, and thank you. And hi, Kevin.
Yeah, hi. And I'm not sure why it looks like my name is showing as Mikako. Is it showing that way for you?
I was going to say, yeah, I do see Mikako here as well. Interesting.
I don't understand why that is. Zoom trickery.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Okay. Hi, Jonathan here. I was wondering about the accelerators. In essence, it's if we have an idea, me or some of my colleagues have an idea of something we want to build using APS, most likely on top of ACC. Or then, should we aim to build it during that week? Is that, or to build, 75% of it during that week? That's the goal.
Great question. Exactly. We call these events accelerators because it's really all about us helping you accelerate your initial ideas and prototype, something you have in mind, right? It's really, it's 1 week, right? So we are not really expecting anybody to be leaving that week with a full-blown solution application. It's more like, if you're in a situation, you're thinking, I've got this idea for maybe starting a new solution or maybe adding a feature to an existing solution. I'm thinking about some kind of feature that's making use of some of the Autodesk Platform Services capabilities, but I'm not sure if it's possible or not, how difficult it would be, right? That's exactly that moment when you should, when you should stop and say, okay, so let me see if there are any accelerators coming up, right? Because instead of you having to go through the initial discovery phases yourself, Googling and going through Stack Overflow, instead, these accelerator events give you a way to basically talk to us face to face. So some people call it, it's kind of fun, as a, like live version of Stack Overflow. So have an idea, something you want to try and implement, right? But instead of doing it on your own, you come and join us for a week, right? You sit with us in a conference room for a week, and you start, hacking on your idea, on your prototype. And as soon as you get to a point where you're not sure whether something, how to do something, is this possible? You don't need to send an email. You don't need to go to Stack Overflow. You just turn around and you ask us, and we're there for you.
Sure. And then do you find it very different in terms of how enterprise developers, someone who's doing in-house development, approaches and benefits that, as opposed to a software vendor or manufacturers, for example? Is it different solutions that they, I mean, obviously it's different solutions and different products, but does it serve them differently? Me being, working in a construction company that is a property owner, developer, and general contractor, we do all of that.
Got it. Well, I mean, as you can see here, I hope you can see my screen. I hope the sharing is working.
Yeah.
I mean, every once in a while, we may have an accelerator that's more focused on a specific topic or theme, but generally, the accelerators are pretty, open in terms of topics and ideas that you guys bring in, right? We may have a company, a large company, like a couple of, developers from a big company, construction company, let's say, right? Coming with an idea, trying to see if they can build a new solution on top of APS. Then we can have, a couple more developers from a small manufacturing company or interested in something completely different. They already have maybe an apps-based application running in production, and they're maybe just thinking, oh, maybe they just heard about this new feature in Autodesk Platform Services, and they're just curious whether, they could incorporate this new feature into their existing production running solution. So again, no specific requirements or like specific topics, unless, again, as you can see here, for example, the accelerator that's running in Copenhagen this week is focused on sustainability.
Sure.
But again, I don't think there's any major difference. Like you can be I don't know, a product owner bringing in a developer with you to our event. You don't even need to be a developer, right? You just have this idea, and you're bringing in maybe your own in-house developer, or maybe some consultant, and you just sit down with us, and again, we talk about your idea. We give you some suggestions, the ways we think you could explore, right? It's very, very generic.
And from our side, that's one of the reasons we ask for proposals. So when you propose an idea, you mentioned ACC docs or ACC systems. We also try to make sure we have staff that matches those capabilities. So and ACC is a really popular topic, so we pretty much always have people that know ACC. We also use Slack during the in-person events. So if you have a very specific question or a gnarly problem and one of the experts on site can't help you, we usually can find someone even in our product engineering teams who may be able to answer the question during the event. So you can at least go away with an answer there.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, of course.
Great point.
And for an example, we do have quite a few, enterprise level customers coming to these events. We did one in Kansas City a few months ago, and I would say maybe half or 2/3 of the attendees were from companies doing kind of automation type stuff within their own, for their own purposes.
Yeah.
Our goal, of course, is to, make sure we, unblock you from immediate problems and, get you into the APS ecosystem, understanding who we are. You meet people face to face, and you might make a personal connection with someone who, can help you even after the event's over.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another great point. It's also about, networking and, you getting to know us, because we see this as a long-term relationship, right? We expect that, we'll talk a lot. So that also helps, right? Like seeing, remembering, having a face to attach to a name. So when you're, discussing something later down the road, maybe you need to contact one of us, you know who we are, right? I think that's also much nicer, more personal. All right. Any other questions or comments? Anybody working on new interesting stuff? Last coffee break, we saw this cool demo of this new query language for syntax for querying different subsets of Revit designs based on the metadata, which I really liked. It's pretty cool. I'm just waiting for people to start coming up with Chat GPT integrations to the platform. I was wondering, that might be pretty interesting. Like, I don't think I'll have time for that. But now with the latest version of Chat GPT, I believe it now has not just text input, but also image input mode, right? So, and being able to basically describe images. I was thinking almost like, taking a photo of a hand-drawn floor plan and asking ChatGPT to describe that floor plan for you, and using that as an input to design automation for Revit. Something like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I saw the version 4 they were just talking about on the news, and they were taking a picture of ingredients in a refrigerator to come up with recipes, right?
Oh, cool.
So, even there, applying that to building materials, I wonder if it could even, fathom what the building might look like. Got this type of material and this quantity of material. What can you give me out of that?
True. Or another one I'm thinking very closely related to what you described would be like interior design, right? Imagine you're shopping for ceramic tiles for your new bathroom, right? And you just you're not sure how it would look like. You just say, well, I mean, here's a picture of a tile that I kind of like, and then imagine, then you could say, well, and it's going to be a bathroom roughly of this size, and I'm thinking about using this kind of tile on the floor and maybe other types of tiles on the walls, and show me how that might look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even getting down to interior design, furniture. These are all the furniture sets that I'm interested in. What are the combinations of layouts that you can give me to fit in my space?
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, I see question in the chat. These meetings are recorded. But okay. But the demo I was talking about, I don't have that demo. It's just something I was curious whether something like that would be possible to build using the last version of Chat GPT. So
I think he might have been asking about the query language that you mentioned before for
oh, that was okay. Sorry, I thought I thought it was a misunderstanding, or somebody maybe thought that. Okay, yeah. So these coffee breaks are recorded. Our colleague Augusto is the one who has access to all these recordings. I think he typically posts them on Twitter, I believe. So I think you should be able to find them on Twitter if you look for coffee break messages from Augusto. Let me see. Augusto. Yeah, so here's where. Let's see. Just oh. Zoom is getting in the way. Coffee break.
Looks like they're on YouTube. He's got a YouTube link in that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we can try. Yeah, see, maybe he hasn't published the latest one yet. Check. Oh, there we go. So this is from 2 days ago, I believe. That's the coffee break from 2 weeks ago. So I
Yeah,
believe
there's
that. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
I was just gonna say, I think there's a little bit of a delay from when we actually have the live one and when they get posted, because we have a,
Sure.
Yeah.
So I believe that's where you'll find the demo of the query language. Pretty interesting stuff. All right, and I see Alex already posted a link. Link to the actual source code. Perfect. Thank you, Alex. So yeah, that was LMBQL. That was the name, the query language. Perfect. Yeah, this is what it looked like. So you could put together some advanced types of queries to drill down into the logical hierarchy of your designs and filtering by certain properties, for example, and then isolate or select the results.
Yeah, and Model Derivative has a new query feature that's in beta now as well. So you can use that directly with the APIs. It's probably a little more limited than what LMVQL is doing, but without having to implement anything extra, you can query model derivative data directly.
Absolutely. This is a recent addition. Is it in here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Specific properties. So up until recently, the model derivative service would typically just give you all properties for your design or properties for one specific object ID. I believe that those were the capabilities before this update, but now we've added more querying capability, more functionality, as you can see here, where you can actually specify more complex queries to get just the data you need. And then there's also the model properties that are available for those of you who may not know. Model properties that are available on ACC or on designs that are hosted in ACC. If you go to the ACC APIs, you'll find the model properties section in the reference. And here's where you can, in a similar way, you can build an index and then you can query that index using a specific query syntax as well to get. So instead of you, for example, having to fetch all the metadata of your design locally and then query that in a certain way, for example, in a viewer, this way you can actually run complex queries on the server side. So you don't need to worry about transferring this potentially large amount of metadata to your system to be able to query it. You just send the query to us, we process it, and we just send you a result, which could be even as simple as a single number. All right. If there are no other comments, I also have a couple of blog posts that we published in the last 2 weeks. One of them was about this cool third-party technology that Adam, one of our colleagues, discovered. Oh, and before we get there, I see there's one more question or comment in the chat. AI.
Yeah, Peter.
Yes.
That was for me. You had mentioned kind of this avenue of incorporating Chat GPT, and I think I read somewhere that in the future, Autodesk Forma would have some machine learning AI behind it. I'm interested in this concept of, instead of having a production team draft or manually select details, kind of having a model trained to predict which details should be kind of like surfaced to the top, and saying like, oh, based on these sheets that you have, based on these views, like I'm predicting these dozen drafting views or detail components are what's going to be in your project. And I'm trying to anticipate where Forma is going to land with that. And understand, is that available in the Forge APIs today as from the development perspective?
It's not available today through our APIs, but I believe this is really going to be a major change moving forward, right? I mean, this type of, like you mentioned, Forma, right? Autodesk Forma, that's our AEC, basically, collection of AEC technologies, AEC related technologies. And I believe that, you know, AI lends itself very nicely to the types of workflows that we want to cover with Autodesk Forma. So exactly as you described, right? I believe that's a perfect use case for having a model trained to, you know, make suggestions or you know, even some initial proposals. So I believe this will happen eventually. I believe that's, you know, that just has to happen. But I'm not sure how, you know, I don't have any information on how, you know, how far we are, whether there's anything concrete coming up, and we certainly don't have this ability through APIs today. That's not available.
And you know, one thing I'd like to add is, you know, if you think about how AI works, you know, it's just about huge amounts of data, right? And it's interpreting that data and predicting and providing results on certain circumstances. So as you've probably seen, Forma, Flow, Fusion, those are our descriptions for our industry models. And we're currently working on information models for all of those industries, and information models is really the data. And the idea going forward is to get a lot of our authoring tools. So, you know, let's use Fusion because it's the most mature today. Fusion 360, when it writes its model information, it's actually writing that to an information model in the cloud. So it's no longer contained by files. So through different APIs, without even having, let's say, Fusion 360 present, you can access a lot of the lower level data, the model hierarchy, the metadata and things like that. And it now becomes real-time data, right? So as soon as the design is updated, that data gets updated, and then other consumers can work with it. So as that matures and more data comes into the information models, that's when I see AI becoming a much more interesting proposal, because now you have enough data to really start predicting and coming up with good result sets.
So it's, so you're saying that that's like further ahead in the future. The information model isn't mature enough yet?
Yeah, exactly. We are really just working on information models today. So for example, we don't even have a public representation yet of an AEC information model. So that's going to come with the Forma, think about the right word, the Forma initiative. So it is being worked on, and we're starting to think about beta projects and things like that. So look for more information coming fairly soon on those details.
So just one more question. So it sounds as though if I wanted to get into that type of mindset and start playing with the AI and ML, I would like maybe train on my company's historical data, then connect it to the Forge API, and start to kind of like see what how far I could take it. Would that be reasonable?
Absolutely. I think, even the model derivative approach to extracting data would give you the ability to start creating a database of your own data. Now that's outside, of the Autodesk APS ecosystem, but people are already doing that today. They create their own external databases with the data that's interesting for them. And then you can apply AI to your own data set as you want.
True. Yeah. The information models, you can almost think of them as a successor to the standard model derivative approach that we've been using so far, right? So up until now, we've included the model derivative service in our portfolio, in our platform. That was the service that was responsible for extracting information for you out of those different design files, right? Like unlocking the data from those design files so that you can use that data in your own use cases, right? For someone, it could be generating spreadsheets with, I don't know, QTOs. For someone, it could be just viewing designs, 2D drawings or 3D views in a viewer. For you now, it could be, extracting the information for, let's say, training a model. And yeah, but now with the information models, exactly as Kevin said, we're thinking, basically not just extracting information out of your design files into something like a JSON that you can then query and then process in whatever way you need. We're actually thinking of like breaking out of the files, binary files, file formats entirely. And instead of, having a file that represents your, I don't know, Revit design or Fusion or Inventor assembly, right? Instead of using a binary file, now that design is represented using basically a graph database in the cloud, right? And that brings many different opportunities of, ways you can access the data and ways you can process it. So I believe that's to what Kevin was saying earlier. Once we migrate to that model, you can imagine that, the granularity of data will be really, really crazy. And then that's going to be even bigger opportunity for someone potentially within Autodesk as well to start training different models on that granular data to provide help for, along the way. But now exactly, if you want to start, testing different models and different, AI approaches today, I believe the model derivative service is still, a pretty good option for that type of work, right? It still lets you extract information. It may be a JSON for now. It's not going to be like you querying a graph database somewhere, but it still gives you, I believe, a solid amount of information from your designs that you can use for the training.
So that's the kind of like the Forma concept, having migrating from the binary files to this database structure that's much easier to query, much easier to process in near real time, right?
Of course,
That's absolutely
very fascinating concept.
The performance is, I believe, the tricky part, right? Because of course, with granularity and this, versatility comes cost, right? That's performance. That's why we don't have a solution ready yet. Because again, I believe this is, this needs really a lot of work, a lot of attention in making sure that you can actually get a really good performance with this granular, graph-based approach of defining your designs as well.
Yeah, and fundamental thing to keep in mind is that today with the file-based approach, when we do a model derivative translation, that's basically a copy of the data. And then you take that data and put it somewhere else, there's another copy of that data. And so tying that back to the original design in terms of where that data now lives and you're looking at it and then thinking, well, I want to modify that data and I want it to apply to the design, that's a much harder problem to solve today. So in that context today, you would have to cache that data somewhere, maybe in your own database, and then on occasion run a synchronization process, probably using design automation if we're talking about Revit, to kind of put some of that data back in. And that's a big problem. That's a hard one to solve. So when we move to the information model and that becomes more of a day-to-day reality, your designs also in the cloud become the source of truth. So it's immediately written, and now that data is there, and we have a much better opportunity to be able to modify that data especially from a property perspective. So if a wall is 10 feet and you say, okay, I want to change that to 2 feet, the next time the model is realized in Revit, that data can be used to update the model in real time.
That information model concept removes a lot of bottlenecks and I guess I would call it incongruities between these different files that we're all using.
Yep, absolutely. That's our goal.
Sorry to burst in, but what I'm missing here, or maybe it's not yet clear. How is the authoring going to be done? Is it going to be, for example, Revit modeling as a service through a browser, or is it going to be a Revit with Revit as a user interface to a model, to a information model which is in the cloud?
Yeah, so I would say in the next iteration of this, Revit as a tool on the desktop will still exist, and you will still model and work with Revit as you normally would. In the short term, the data will still be sort of duplicated, right? Because we still, to keep workflows and backwards compatibility, all of that stuff, there has to be a file somewhere. But at the same time that you're editing that file, those updates are going to the cloud as well. And you'll be able to choose whether you want that in the beginning, I'm sure. I don't know the details, but if you choose to write to the cloud, you'll get the same data at the same time of authoring. Now, like Peter said, there is a performance thing, so it's not going to always be immediate. But if you look at Fusion 360 today, that's what it's doing. So we've already kind of got one product that's the kind of the model or the poster child, if you will, that's doing this already. So there's a client side piece of Fusion. You work on your model like you normally would, and then it's also writing that hierarchy of the model and the properties and all that kind of stuff to the cloud model.
So I'm guessing the parameters as a service is kind of hooks into these ideas.
Yep, absolutely. That's also going to be a component to this whole system. Yep.
Fascinating.
And maybe one more thing I would add to what Kevin said earlier, talking about, instead of duplicating data when you need to make modifications, you can actually, get access to the granular subsets of your design represented using, let's say, again, that graph. Another thing is also, this granularity then gives you a better control of what subsets of your design you maybe want to share with others, right? Maybe you are working with, I don't know, general contractor or somebody, right? Maybe on a manufacturing side, you need to, one example we used, right, Kevin, was the Revit model with a staircase where you wanted outsource or basically collaborate with somebody who designed, was it the railing for the stairs, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, you don't want to share your entire model with them, right? But if
And they
we
don't need the entire model, right?
need it even, right? But
It's a
and
huge data set that they don't need.
and if you move exactly, and if you move to this level of granularity, then you also another benefit you get is being able to control exactly what part of your design you want to share with that, third party. For example, if you want to share, let's say, just the stairwell for the manufacturer to be able to, get proper dimensions for the railing.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing things like currently, it's like very file-based things, but we have subcontractors modeling certain things within our models. So A, we can see and verify them. B, they actually take that and manufacture according to these subset of the models. They basically filter out certain things and cut and weld them in the factory and then bring them with a label to site. So obviously the idea of having that data, being able to kind of slice that data according to who's going to use it for what purposes is what the future needs to look like. Yeah.
Exactly, Jonathan. It's great point. Exactly.
Yeah.
This is one of the use cases we even demonstrated last year. I mean, I sent a link to the chat if any of you are hearing this for the first time, this idea of these information models and moving, away from files, moving designs to databases. Last year, we ran a series of events. They were called Forge Data Days. We have recordings of these events as well. And this was actually one of the demos we presented during these events. This like taking a subset of a Revit design, let's say just the stairwell, shipping that off, making that available as a separate little chunk of design available for a manufacturer who could then open that little chunk in Inventor and use it to design the railing itself. So you'll find video recordings of these events from last year. And I would definitely recommend to check them out if this is the area that that's interesting for you.
Yeah, and there's just a question came in from Bowen about the Speckle solution. So I'm not a Speckle expert, but Speckle is another database as far as I know, and it has connections to tools like Revit. But in that circumstance, I think it's still a copy of the data, right? So it's connecting to Revit as the source, and a copy of the data is being put in a database. So it's very powerful, and there's lots of solutions like that on the market today and can be done today. Whereas the information model is coming, we've got a future to look forward to have that. But I think the long-term benefit to the information model is that it's the authoring tools that are writing the data. And again, going back to that idea of source of truth. So you're not having to take the data and put it somewhere else. It's in a place that you can access from all kinds of tools. And perhaps Speckle one day will become a consumer of that data as well with their tools, because they have some great tools, but they would no longer have to copy that data into their data sets. Hopefully that helps.
Oh, I was going to call you Macaco, but
yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why the label is messed up. I've never seen that before in my life. I'm Kevin.
Yes, Kevin. Yeah, Kevin. We met during the accelerator several times. My question: you said that the desktop version of you'll be able to use desktop Revit, but I'm guessing that's only due to familiarity, because it sounds like you wouldn't necessarily need a desktop software to access and author or edit this information model, because Fusion doesn't use that, right? Fusion has like a very lightweight client that is, I wouldn't necessarily call it a kind of like a standalone desktop app.
Right.
It sounds like you could use something as light as Formit or something else to really do some deep editing.
That's right. I believe it opens up the opportunity for other editing tools to be operating on the same data set as permissioned, right? You need access to the data, of course. And I do think our more mature desktops will start moving towards the idea of how Fusion is structured today. It's an evolution process, right? And you know, we're not going to see this next year, but we're heading in that direction. That is the plan. So you're exactly right. You know, in the long term, would you need to have a full Revit on the desktop? Maybe not. If you're just doing markups, for example, why not do markups directly on the design, and then the designer comes back with Revit and makes the changes. So the process that the things that we do today are going to become simpler and access the core of the data instead of having copies of it all over the place.
Great. Looking forward to it. I guess there's no real timeline for when that starts to break through to the production teams.
Well, like I said, you know, Fusion Data has read data currently available, and you know, they're the poster child. And you know, the AEC information model is coming. You know, this year you'll see a glimpse of that. And we do have data exchange as well. So talking about subsets of data and sharing data, you're going to find that the way data exchange structures its data today is very much what the AEC information model will be doing with their data. It'll just be the complete model now. And you know, the other thing to think about when we start moving to a real database is you don't have to have copies of things everywhere either. So, you know, a custom window that you might use in 14 different designs can be represented once and referenced across all those designs. So there's lots of kind of performance and just data efficiency things that are going to fall out of these information models, I believe.
Does this solve the issue of the 3-year subscription window with our Revit files? Because we find that if we have Revit 2019, like if our client has a Revit 2019 file that represents when their project was completed, and then, hey, I want to do an addition, I want to do a new phase, we're concerned about not having access to the version of Revit that it was in, and then we have data loss when we upgrade. Does the information model start to ameliorate those issues?
Yeah, I would say so. It's going to help with that going forward. You know, and just to address your 3-year mark, you know, to be clear, Autodesk's official policy is current version. 3 versions back are officially supported by product support and API support. And then you can also access 2 more versions behind that. So in total, you should have access to 6 versions at any given time. But I get what you're saying, you know, so long term, what if I've got the 7th version, you know? And
yeah,
I think information models are going to help solve that. I don't know exactly what the final solution will be, but I can assume from the data perspective, if you're authoring in an older client, you're only going to see some of the data if there's data enhancements going forward, for example. But that seems feasible and possible.
thanks.
And Peter, I think we're probably well over time, right? Does Augusto have a time limit on this?
That's a good question. I wasn't sure. When I was talking to Augusto, I thought, well, the event was starting at 4 p.m. here. I mean, we can certainly continue for a little longer if there are other questions. I think we got quite deep into the information model here, which I think is good because we need to promote this. I believe this is the way to go, right? This is the future. So I think it's good that we need to make people aware of where we're headed with this.
Will you be uploading the entire conversation? I'd love to reference this in the future.
You mean, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
I was going to say, So the meeting recording should get put up to YouTube in the normal coffee break channel.
Yeah. Let me see if there's anything else in the chat. There we go. All right. 30 minutes. Okay. Perfect. All right. So yeah, so we're a little bit over time. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Kevin, for all the helpful information here. I think that was really, really great to have you here.
Thanks for running it today, Peter. Great job.
Absolutely. Happy to help, and we'll be back again. And I hope that we will see you come and join us again with other questions and ideas and comments. Again, we want to keep making this event, keeping this event very informal, right? Just questions, comments you have, really open topics. We really welcome those. So thank you again for joining us, and you can expect the recording, as Kevin said, of this coffee break on the YouTube channel, probably sometime, I would say next week. And then we will see you again in the next coffee break. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye-bye. Have a good rest of your day.